challenge me, mortal? A god of Olympus? A true warrior does not hide, Poseidon! Leave the sea and face me!
What's going on, good people? Hope you're all well and ready to put on those nostalgia glasses as we take a step back in time to Kratos' adventures in ancient Greek mythology. It feels like ages ago when we saw Kratos as that lean, mean, angry machine, slaying Greek gods left and right, and helping himself to heaping buckets of blood as his preferred thirst quencher. I know you all and myself are very much looking forward to God of War Ragnarok, as it is easily becoming one of the biggest releases for the genre and will undoubtedly be a worthy follow-up to God of War 2018. However, because we have just over one more month to go until we get our hands on that game, I thought it would be a good idea to go back down memory lane and talk about the grand, epic birth of this franchise that we hold so dear to our hearts. In this video, we will be taking a look at 5 reasons why Kratos' saga in Greek mythology was so awesome, and why it still kicks so much ass to this day. This covers all the Greek mythology games here, with God of War 1 through 3, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta on the PSP, and also God of War Ascension. Sorry, God of War Betrayal fans, I haven't played that game, and thus, it just won't be on the list. Sad face. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
By defeating Ares, Kratos, the once mortal warrior, became the new god of war. However, Kratos soon found himself alone on Olympus, shunned by his fellow gods.
In no particular order of importance, coming in at number 5 is without a doubt the franchise's combat. My god, these games are so much fun. God of War as a franchise was known for its over-the-top gore and brutality, and angsty Kratos with his feverish disgust toward the gods fueled players with some of the greatest power fantasies ever in gaming history. With the square button and triangle button acting as the game's light and heavy attacks respectively, Kratos was able to string combos with his now iconic Blades of Chaos with ease. Unlike other games at the time where character action games saw players wielding swords and nunchucks, and a variety of other weapons, God of War saw players able to wield some of the most lethal blades ever to grasp the medium. With the Blades of Chaos's impressive reach, and with Kratos able to essentially let go of his blades and flail his arms around, players were able to take out enemies both near and far with dazzling displays of athletic and acrobatic finesse. Adding to that, Kratos has been able to wield some truly legendary weapons across his time in ancient Greece, including the Blade of Artemis, the Claws of Hades, Spear of Destiny, and more. His added magical capabilities, including hurling lightning bolts from Zeus, summoning creatures from the underworld, and summoning a phalanx of armed troops surrounding Kratos, makes Kratos' arsenal during his Greek adventures incredibly versatile and fun to experiment with. If you played any of these games, what were some of your favorite weapons in the older God of War games? Let me know below. Arriving in at number 4 is a no-brainer here, the boss fights. God of War changed the game forever when it came to delivering epic boss fights. No action game before it had that kind of epic, large-scale flair that God of War brought to the medium. In the year 2005, with the very first boss in the franchise, you know the one, with the Hydra that erupts through the shipwrecked boat, had my 14-year-old ass jumping several inches off my couch when that thing crashed through the flooded wreck. Little did I know the crazy ride I was about to go on when, mere minutes later, I was impaling the Mother Hydra through her mouth with the mast of a shipwreck. Kratos was relentless during his Greek days. I mean, holy crap, bro. This guy wasn't joking around when he used Theseus' head as the world's most effective door stopper. The opening battle in God of War 3 against Poseidon was perhaps one of the greatest openings to a video game ever. The towering multi-part epic with the Hecatoncheires in God of War Ascension also deserves special mention. These multi-part bosses did so much for boss design to the industry as a whole, by popularizing multi-part boss fights that altered their behavior the longer into the fight, and by popularizing the brutal finishers we all love and know to this day. Yep, you guessed it, coming in at number 3 is the variety of finishing moves. Pressing a button or a sequence of buttons to finish off enemies wasn't exactly new when God of War made its debut. We have to thank Mortal Kombat for the fatality system that planted that seed, but God of War took it further by giving the player multiple ways to finish off some of the smaller enemies and rewarded the player big time with some of the larger enemies. These finishers were not only awesome and satisfying to look at, but encouraged the player to make smart, tactical decisions about whether or not to finish off certain types of enemies. See, some enemies, like the Minotaurs for example, yield green health orbs that replenish Kratos' health bar after successful execution of the finisher, whereas Gorgons drop blue magic orbs that replenish the magic bar. If you are already maxed out with full health and or magic, players can choose to just kill the enemies the standard way and get their red experience orbs instead to power up their own equipment. Absolutely loved that choice at play there in the older titles. Plus, these finishing moves continued to get better and better as the series progressed. You could see clear improvements in God of War 3 and especially Ascension, when enemy character models would display gashes and brutal open wounds, resulting in the pinnacle of the franchise when it comes to straight up brutality. The QuickTime events, although not necessarily a game changer, helped players participate even further in these incredible acts of savagery that have remained an industry staple to this day, although to a much lesser extent in God of War 2018. In at number 2 is the music. Yes, the music. The older God of War games had such a cinematic score that properly fit the tone and scale of these epic games. Combat scenarios had the score build up to cinematic clashes of percussion and a frenzied wind section, whereas the more serene and tranquil moments were accentuated by a softer symphony of relaxing and whimsical melodies. Everything just felt very ancient Greece, as these larger-than-life gods and goddesses were brought to life in front of our very eyes. The anger and hatred of Kratos was masterfully represented in the music, as the music swelled and built up at just the right times to highlight the game's different moods. Santa Monica Studio have proven themselves time and time again that the music score in all of their God of War games are among the highest quality soundtracks produced that, no question, rival Hollywood and other movie production studios. Before we get to number 1, I'd like to remind you all to kindly hit the like button if you are liking the video so far, and smash that subscribe button if you're loving it. Your support goes a long way in helping my channel get better and better with each day, and to all those who have supported me thus far, you rock, and I thank you all for your continued consideration. Now, on to number 1. Let's talk about the scale and variety of the environments on offer here in these older God of War games. Traversing through a destroyed Athens as Ares decimates it with his sheer size and armed forces, going through the sunken corridors of Atlantis and Ghosts of Sparta, and cruising atop the steeds of time in God of War 2 are some of the most incredible and well-realized locations in the series. The great diversity and variety to the color palettes give off a sense of scale and wonder to every location you pass through. As unappealing as River Styx is in myth, the developers were able to convey just that, with its massive bloody river stretching forebodingly into the distance, with all sorts of crazy contraptions preventing Kratos' escape from returning to the land above. As a kid who grew up fascinated about mythology and the incredible history surrounding these tales, to explore these worlds and see them come to life from God of War was such an awesome experience, and one that I regularly return to. Special mention here before we wrap this video up goes to the awesome storytelling done here in the older God of War games. The series has surely come a long way since the early days, but it is worthwhile to pay respects to what came before it with its fantastic narrative and easy-to-digest story. Linda Hunt and her masterful, poetic narration of the entire Greek saga is a masterful example of how to do narration right in video games. Characters are voiced with conviction, and T.C. Carson brought to life one of the most iconic and beloved characters in all of gaming with his powerful voice as Kratos. Although much of the community recalls these earlier games having stories that haven't aged particularly well due to the overdose in rage, I have a soft spot for them, as its cinematic way of storytelling expertly transported us all to an era that we had only heard of through children's stories and animated films. God of War was the game industry's gateway into one of the most celebrated collections of stories and myth that has graced humankind, and its lasting impact of bringing in millions of people to experience a slice of these stories stands as one of God of War's greatest achievements. So, what do you think of my list? God of War has been one of the most important franchises for me, as I very much grew up with these games when they came out during my adolescent years. As the franchise has become older and matured more, I see the impact of it more and more as it pertains to my life, and I am grateful for this series' contributions and continued excellence as God of War seems to continue to get better with each new installment. Do you have anything you'd change or add to the list? Let me know down in the comments, and be sure to once again hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and go ahead and subscribe if you loved it. Stay tuned for the next video talking about some of the aspects of the older God of War titles that haven't exactly aged as well as the other ones covered here in this video. Stay tuned for more God of War content as we get closer to God of War Ragnarok's release, and make sure to head over to this video on your screen to get more insight as to just how massive God of War Ragnarok is likely to be. Thank you all for your amazing support. You are all rock stars, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Peace!